Hey guys, in this video we are going to build a Gmail bike sender in Excel using Python. And here's how it works. When I click this button, all the emails listed in this table here will be sent out from my personal Gmail account to the respective recipients. Additionally, you can also add attachments to your messages and even use placeholders to personalize each email for every recipient. This makes it a great solution if you need a quick and easy way to send emails to multiple people, or if you just want to learn how to automate Excel using Python. Now, I know some of you watching might not be interested in coding out the solution yourself. And for those I have really good news, because I've already coded out the entire solution for you and you can download the ready to use template from the description box below. Now, in the description you will actually find two templates available. The first one is completely free and built with Python. The second one uses VBA, and while it is a paid option, it is much more powerful and comes with a ton of extra features. I will go over the differences between the two and also explain how they work later in the video. But enough talking here, let's dive in and code out the solution. Before I show you how to send an email from your Gmail account using Python, we need to create something called an app password. That's because the regular password you use to log in into your Gmail account won't work for this. To create the app password, first go to your Google Accounts page. Make sure you're logged in with the same Gmail account you want to send the emails from. In my case, I'm using this test account here. Once you are logged in, head over to the security section. Here is where you will need to check if the two-step verification is already enabled. So you should see a green check mark here. If you haven't enabled the two-step verification yet, don't worry. Just click the option here and then follow the instruction from Google. Once that is done, we can move on. In the search bar, you want to search for app passwords. Once you found it, click on it, and now you will need to re-enter your password again. Once that is done, you will see a screen where you can name your app password. For example, I'm calling mine Python Gmail Blaster. After naming it, click on Create. Your app password will now appear. As written here in the information, this password works like a regular password and gives access to your account, so don't share it with anyone. In my case, I will of course delete this app password before uploading this video. Alright, with that said, let me copy the password to my clipboard. Now, I've already created a simple Python script for you, which you can find in the description box below. I will walk you through the code in just a moment, but for now, let me paste the app password into the script. Alright, with that done, let's take a look at the code. At the top, you will see the imports. These are all core Python modules, so you don't need to install anything extra. They come already pre-installed with Python. So first we have the email modules, and then for handling the file paths for the attachments, I've also imported path from pathlib. After our imports is our configuration section. Here you can set up the sender email address, the recipients, CC addresses, subject, body, and also the attachments. For multiple recipients, I'm using a Python list. And the same goes also for the CC addresses and also the attachment paths. For the email body, I'm using HTML tags to format the message. This lets you do things like making the text bold or adding some images. And if you are unsure how to format something in HTML, you can of course always ask ChatGPT for help. And for the attachments, you just need to specify the file paths. In my case, the file I'm attaching is in the same directory as my Python script. That is why I only included the file name instead of the full path. Alright, and with that set up, we can now create the email. This includes adding the subject, sender emails, and the recipients. And then we can also add the HTML body. And optionally, we can also attach our files now to the email. Once all of that is in place, we need to log in into our Gmail account using the app password we just created. Once authenticated, the script will send the emails. So let me test it out by running the script. When it's done, I will check my email inboxes. I have sent the email to two temporary email addresses. So after refreshing the inboxes, we can see the email has been successfully sent. Both inboxes shows the emails, and in this inbox here, I can also download the attachment. Now that we know that everything is working, here's the idea. Instead of manually specifying all the recipients and attachments in the code, we are going to build a user-friendly interface for it. And if you have been following me here on YouTube for a while, you probably know my favorite tool for this, which is Microsoft Excel. So in the next step, let's create a Python-powered spreadsheet. To do this, we will use a package called _Excel_Wings. First, let me open my terminal in my current directory. To install _Excel_Wings, simply use pip. Once you have installed it, type the following command: _Excel_Wings quick start followed by your project name, and then add the argument standalone. This now creates a new folder in the directory from where you ran the command. Inside this folder you will find both an Excel file and also a Python file. For now, let's open the Excel file. We will come back to the Python code in just a moment. In Excel, navigate to the Developer tab. If you don't see it, then don't worry. Just right-click on the ribbon, select Customize the ribbon, and in the window that pops up, click the box for Developer. Click on OK, and then you should also now see the Developer tab. Alright, with that in place, let's add a button to our sheet. For that, just go to the Developer tab, go to Insert, select the button, and then draw it onto your sheet. After that, filter the macro for this workbook, and you should see one called sample call. Select it and then click on OK. Now, if you click the button, the Python file in the same directory should execute. However, in my case, I get an error saying that the interpreter couldn't be found. This means 𝗟𝗡𝗥𝗑𝗧𝗜𝗢 doesn't know the path to my Python installation yet. And fixing this is actually pretty simple. Just remove the leading underscore from the settings sheet to activate the 𝗟𝗡𝗥𝗧𝗜𝗢𝗡 settings. In most cases, that should fix already the issue. However, if you still run into errors, I will include a link to the 𝗟𝗡𝗥𝗧𝗏𝗡 troubleshooting guide in the description below, so make sure to check that out. Okay, and with that said, when I click the button again, it says Hello 𝗟𝗡𝗥𝗡𝗏𝗧 in cell A1. And if I click the button again, it changes to By 𝗟𝗡𝗥𝗏𝗧𝗏. And if that is also working for you, then congratulations, you've just hooked up your spreadsheet with Python. And I think that is pretty cool. But also let me quickly explain what's happening behind the scenes. When you click the button, a VBA macro was triggered, which then executed a Python file. And if we have a look at the Python file, we will see there's a main function that accesses the first sheet of our workbook. And now that we have access to the workbook, we can read and write values directly in Python. And this is pretty neat, because it allows us to build the entire user interface in Excel. Then, with a click of a button, Python handles all the backend operations. In our case, that will be sending the emails. And once the emails are sent, we can even update the workbook like the sending status, so whether each email was successfully sent or not. Alright, and with that said, let's bring this to life by building the user interface in Excel. First, I will rename the button to Send Emails. Next, let me also quickly show you the VBA code that 𝗟𝗡𝗥𝗧𝗏𝗡 inserted. For that, open the Visual Basic Editor, and you will see a subroutine named sample call. There is nothing actually we need to change here, but for better naming, I will rename the subroutine to Send Emails. After renaming it, we will also need to reassign the macro to the button. To do that, right-click on the button, select Assign Macro, and choose Send Emails. Great, and with that, let's build the user interface. I will start by entering the sender email and password into the sheet. Now we could directly specify in the Python file that the sender address is in cell C3 and the password is in cell C4. But that is not really ideal, because if you add more rows or columns or just move things around, you would have to update the Python code every time to match a new cell reference. So to avoid this, we give these cells names. Later in Python, we can then connect the named cells instead of hard-coding the references. And to name a cell, just click into the cell, and then at the top of the toolbar you will see the name box. Here you can now define a name. In my case, I will name the email cell Sender Email, and the password cell will be Sender Password. Just don't forget to press Enter after typing in the name. If you've done it correctly, you will now see those names in the drop down here. Okay, next let's add some styling to make it a bit more nicer and also prepare the sending list. Here I've created the headings for the status, receiver, CCC, subject, attachments, and also 3 placeholders. I will explain the placeholders later in the video. For now, let me just turn this data into an Excel table. To do that, select the data, go to Insert, and then choose Table. Just like before, I will give this table a name. So while the table is still selected, go to the name box and then define the name. In my case, I will call mine Table Send List. Alright, next up, I will also rename the sheet here to Send List. And at the same time, I will also create a new sheet called Email Body. In the email body sheet, we will have one large cell where we will write our email content. And after styling it a bit, I will name this cell Email Body. Alright, and with that done, we are almost finished. I will just clean up the sheet a bit by hiding the unnecessary rows and columns and turning off the grid lines, so that we have a clean and simple interface. Now let's talk about the email body cell. This is where you will write your actual message, so your email. Just like before, you can use HTML tags here. For example, you can include an image or format the text. And in my case, I will also use placeholders in the email body. So the idea of the placeholders is to customize each message for every recipient. To include a placeholder, just wrap it around with curly brackets. Later in the Python code, we will replace these placeholders with the actual values from the sending list. And also a quick tip here: when you're writing your message, if you press Alt and Enter, you can add a line breaks to your cell to make it a bit more readable. Okay, and with that all in place, we can now go ahead and fill out the send list. As I just mentioned, here you can now define the placeholder values for each email. By the way, these are optional, so if you don't need placeholders, you can leave those cells blank. And the same goes also for the attachments. If you don't want to include any, just leave the attachment cell empty. But if you do want to send attachments, you will need to enter the file path. To do this, simply right-click on the file, copy the path, and then paste it into the cell. Just make sure to remove the quotation marks around the path. And if you want to include multiple attachments, you can separate them with commas. And the same goes also for the receivers and CCC. So just use commas to send the same email to multiple recipients. Alright, and also in this sheet here, let me style it a little bit and also remove the grid lines. Alright, so with that done, let's save the file and switch over to the Python code. To keep this tutorial concise and straight to the point, I've already coded out the solution for you. But don't worry, I will still explain how it works step by step. Just like before, we start with the main function. Inside this function, we will first retrieve all the values from Excel. To do that, we need to specify the sheet. And now this is where the use of the explicit names and named ranges really comes in handy. It makes referencing data in Python much easier. Also, I should mention here, if you want to dive deeper into using Excel rings and how to use it, I already have several tutorials here on my channel. And I will link one of them in the description box below. Because in this video I will keep the explanation pretty brief. Okay, so once we've defined the sheet, we can access the data from the table, as well as the sender email and also our password. But before sending any emails, I will clear the status column in the table. Next, we can iterate over the rows from the table to access all the input values, like the receiver, CC addresses, attachments, subject, and also the placeholders. Once we have all those values, we only need the email body, which we can find in the email body worksheet. And now we can also replace the placeholders in the email body with the actual values from our table. Alright, and now that we have all the relevant data, we can send the email. This function here is actually very similar to what I've showed you earlier in the video. Alright, and once an email is sent, we will also update the status to indicate whether it was successfully sent or not. Finally, when all the emails are sent, the user is notified with a message box in Excel. Okay, and if I scroll up a bit here on top, you will also now see the send email function. As I mentioned, this is actually very similar to the code I showed you in the beginning of the video. Okay, and with that all in place, let's test it out. Back in Excel, I will trigger the code by pressing the button. Once it's done, we will see the status column is going to be updated, and also we will get our message box. Since we didn't get any errors, it means the email was successfully sent. So let's validate it by checking our inboxes. Alright, and there it is, our email sent directly from Microsoft Excel. But let me also check the other inbox and give it a refresh. Alright, and also here we can see the email too. And with that all working, here's the cool part. Back in Excel you now have the complete flexibility. You can, for example, use Excel formulas to construct the attachment pairs dynamically, or expand the table to include as many rows as you need. The possibilities are almost endless here. And just to test it out one more time, let me send a few more emails. So after entering all the data and pressing the button, you will see again that the status column for each message is being updated. And once all the messages are sent, we will see our message box again. And just to make sure it really works, I will go back to my inbox and refresh it. Alright, and here it is, all the emails we just sent. Okay, and that's basically it. You now have your very own custom Gmail bike sender tool built directly in Excel. And for those who would prefer to skip building this from scratch, I've created already a downloadable template for you. You can find the link in the description box below. This template is essentially very similar to the tool we just created together. It includes our placeholders and also in the email body sheet all the functionality we have seen. The main difference is that I have extended the code a bit further and added additional error handling to make it a bit more robust. For example, if you need more than 7 placeholders, you can easily adjust the script here and then extend the Excel table accordingly. Also, since Gmail has a maximum attachment size of 25 megabytes, I've added a check to ensure your emails stay within that limit before sending. Alright, and lastly, if you are looking for an even better solution, let me show you another template I've created. This tool now is very similar to the one we just built, but the main difference here is that it's entirely written in VBA. That means you do not need to have Python installed on your computer or install anything extra. You can simply download the template and start using it right away. This version took me actually quite some time to code out because it is much more robust and includes a ton of more features. For example, instead of just sending attachments, you can now embed Excel ranges directly in the email body. To do this, simply specify the Excel range in the placeholder section, and in the final email, the placeholder will be replaced with the actual content from the range. Additionally, this version also lets you use Excel's default styling options, like changing the font colors or making text bold. But of course, if you want, you can still use HTML in the email body. So basically, you can combine both Excel styling with HTML. Now, some of you might be also wondering if it's possible to include your Gmail signature in these emails. And the short answer is no, you can't. Since the emails are sent via SMTP, you don't have access to your Gmail web client to retrieve the signature. However, with this tool, you can enable a signature options in the settings. Here you can paste any HTML signature you have, and it will be automatically appended to each email. Additionally, you could also customize the font size and family for your email here. Now, I will actually make a dedicated video about this template, but for those who are interested, you can find the download link in the description box as well. Additionally, I've also created a comprehensive documentation that walks you through every single feature of the tool. Okay, and lastly, let me also touch on the email limits when using Gmail. For that, I recommend checking out the official Google documentation, which provides all the details about the limits. The bottom line is that Gmail isn't designed for large-scale email campaigns where you are sending thousands of emails a day from your personal account. For those situations, you want to use services like SendGrid or Postmark. However, if you only need to send a few hundred emails per day, whether to customer, clients, students or others, then the Excel Gmail Blaster tool is likely all you need. Alright guys, and that is everything I have for you today. I hope you found the video helpful. As always, thanks for watching and I will see you in the next one.